Hey everybody, welcome back to Race of History. Things may look a little bit different today. I have a new camera that I'm just hooked up and am using for the first time. I've got a new microphone coming in. Like I said, there's a bunch of changes happening to the channel over the next couple of days. A handful of different things I'm working on. We're going to start today with part 4 of the Hunting the Bismarck series by Extra History. I also am going to have either another Sabaton song or the second part, the Swedish version Sabaton history for A Lifetime of War. I haven't completely decided on that. Tomorrow I will have 2 different videos out. One of them is going to be the next part of the Hannibal series, and also the World War II video that I'm working on, the way that Germany could have won World War II. That should be out in the next week. I have been putting so much time and energy into it. It's been kind of hard to keep up with reaction videos and working on that in the background too. But I think I've kind of sanded around the edges as much as I possibly can. And so it should be out very soon, within the next week. And with all that being said, let's get into it. Hunting the Bismarck, Part 4, Sink the Bismarck.
A flight of swordfish speeds east toward the Bismarck. The hope of the Royal Navy rests on their wings. This episode is sponsored by Wargaming. New players can download World of Warships and use the code EXTRA1 for free goodies. Link in the description. 2047 hours. The 15 swordfish pilots know that this is their last shot. Soon it'll be dark, and by dawn the next day, the Bismarck will be in range of the Luftwaffe air bases on the French coast. No one else can get here in time. They sight the Bismarck and start their attack run, coming in piecemeal after losing formation in the clouds. They fly low, some only 50 feet above the cresting waves. The Bismarck lights up with anti-aircraft fire, filling the air so thick with shells that the pilots hunch in their open cockpits. Crewmen scream as shrapnel tears their unprotected bodies. One swordfish takes 175 hits. But they don't go down. Torpedoes hit the water. One strikes Bismarck on its thick armor belt. The great ship weaves and dodges. Huge waves send the tin fish at crazy angles. One pilot is about to loose when he hears his navigator yell, "Not now!" He turns to see the man hanging upside down from the side of the plane, judging wave patterns so that the torpedo runs straight. "Okay, let it go!" It's a textbook shot, 2 ship lengths ahead. The Bismarck makes an evasive turn, but the torpedo strikes its stern. There's a blast of flame and water, but the great ship sails on, unaffected. As the bloodied swordfish crews climb out of their aircraft, they report that they've failed. But a report comes in saying that the Bismarck is behaving erratically. She hasn't recovered from her evasive turn and has circled northwest into the wind and directly away from the French coast. The torpedo knocked out her steering. The pilots erupt in celebration. The 27th of May, 00 hours.
How crazy. Like, it never ceases to amaze me the way that new technology is used, but how people kind of like adapt to the new technology. For that guy to be hanging over the side of the plane, judging wave patterns before dropping a torpedo, or a torpedo that they don't even know for sure is effective. Like I said, there are a bunch of issues with the torpedoes in World War II. So just the judgment of it, they're flying planes that are cloth. It's just, it never ceases to amaze me how adaptable humans are, even with new technology they don't totally understand, don't completely have a grasp of, and they just kind of adapt and figure out a way. It's always very interesting to me.
On the King George V, Admiral Tovey finally has the opportunity he's needed to close the jaws on Bismarck. Over the last few hours, he's ordered destroyers to bracket the ship in order to ensure that Bismarck doesn't escape again. A few have harassed it with torpedoes, one Polish destroyer flashing the message, "I am a Pole," while firing, but mostly they're keeping their distance. There'll be no night attack, Tovey decides. Catching up will cost precious fuel, and Bismarck has proved too dangerous to fight in less than ideal conditions.
Yeah, that's the thing. Even if the Bismarck can't steer, it still is a very, very dangerous situation for the ships that are approaching it. So it makes sense that they would be a little bit apprehensive about closing in and actually engaging with it.
Wait until morning. 08:45 hours, 48 degrees 10 minutes north, 16 degrees 15 minutes west. For the first time since beginning this mission, Tovey sees Bismarck with his own eyes. Behind him is the HMS Rodney. The Rodney is old, slow, and leaking below decks, but its 16-inch guns are the largest in the Royal Navy. Though barely able to maneuver, Bismarck's guns are still fully operational. Tovey's plan is to approach Bismarck from all sides, forcing the ship to split its fire between his 4 ships, the battleships King George V and Rodney, and the cruisers Dorsetshire and Norfolk. But first, the battleships must drive in hard from the west with only their forward turrets firing, the same maneuver that doomed the Hood. The Rodney opens fire at a range of 12 miles. Spray leaps up in front of the Bismarck, high enough that it spoils the targeting on King George V's first salvo. 3 minutes later, Bismarck answers, its opening salvo landing all around Rodney. Back and forth the 3 ships trade fire, the Rodney and King George V plunging forward at top speed in the heavy seas. The pace renders the Rodney's engine room nearly uninhabitable. Crewmen hose her overheating boilers down with seawater. Every salvo blows the boiler doors open with a rush of flame, and each curtain of fire from the Bismarck creeps closer to the Rodney. On the Bismarck's 3rd salvo, fountains of water bracket the old ship. Shrapnel lances through her superstructure. The Rodney is dead to rights, expecting a hit. But then she fires. The 16-inch shell smashes into Bismarck's main fire control director. Her guns fall quiet in the absence of orders. The British battleships turn and split up, surrounding the Bismarck, pounding her with broadsides from 2 angles. After a pause, the Bismarck turns slightly to put King George V in view of its undamaged aft fire director, its salvos barely missing Tovey's flagship. But the British have found their range. 3 minutes after her first hit, Rodney nails Bismarck's B turret, penetrating the armor with a blast so powerful the concussion temporarily knocks neighboring A turret out of action. Bismarck's counterfire dwindles, each turret firing erratically and independently. Now even Tovey's cruisers have joined the pummeling. The 8-inch guns of Norfolk and Dorsetshire are too small to sink the Bismarck, but they tear through its unarmored upper decks. The Bismarck's superstructure begins to come apart. An ammunition locker explodes. The fire director station flies through the air like a kicked can. Flames reach as high as the mainmast. The bridge collapses forward. By 0930 hours, Bismarck's 4 great turrets have fired their last salvo, and shots from her secondary guns dwindle. The Rodney closes to point-blank range, 2,000 yards, and begins slamming broadsides into the hull. 3 fires rage on Bismarck's deck. Holes appear in the upper hull. So many shells are pounding the bow that it's red hot, hissing with steam every time it plunges into the heavy sea. Watching through binoculars, Royal Navy officers see a little trickle of men emerge from Bismarck. They run along the deck, sheltering behind the blasted turrets or jumping in bunches into the sea. For many of the British, it's the first time they've seen the enemy. It sickens them. German sailors try to signal surrender, but the next volley cuts them down. Aboard the Rodney, a chaplain tearfully begs the ship's captain to stop, but their orders are clear. The Bismarck must be sunk. Yet the ship stubbornly refuses to go under. Tovey's ships circle, hammering her with every weapon they have, pounding away until the stress of their guns shatter windows and open leaks in their own ships. For 50 minutes they dismember the Bismarck, firing over 2,800 shells. At 10:21 hours, the guns go quiet. Tovey's ships have expended so much fuel that they're in danger of not being able to get back home. Tovey orders his ships to make for Scapa Flow. The Dorsetshire will finish the Bismarck. Dorsetshire moves to point-blank range and fires 2 torpedoes into the Bismarck's starboard side and another into the port side. The pride of Hitler's fleet heels over, her lower hull glowing from internal fires, and gradually sinks by the stern. Within 15 seconds, she's gone. The Dorsetshire throws nets over its side to pick up German survivors. Her sailors try to haul as many as they can aboard, but some are badly burned or missing limbs. Safe on deck, crewmen hand their half-frozen enemies rum and hot cocoa, pity eclipsing their anger over the loss of the Hood. But then a lookout spots a U-boat periscope. German submarines are known to converge on sinking ships, and in order to save his crew, the Dorsetshires captain gives an unthinkable order. Unless they want to join the Bismarck, they must get underway. The ship begins to pull forward with hundreds of wailing men still floating around her. Some cling to the nets as she begins to move, losing their grip and drifting to stern as she gains speed. 2,200 men served on Bismarck. Only 114 survived. The time is 1200 hours. Churchill tells Parliament that the Bismarck has been sunk. The news goes out via radio minutes later, greeted by 3 cheers in the Bletchley Park canteen. It's a major victory for the codebreakers, proof that their program can deliver results. The victory comes...
That may be one of the biggest impactful things that happens here. You know, the Bismarck itself is it's more of a symbol, and don't get me wrong, it is capable of wreaking havoc in the Atlantic, but it's really a symbol, right? Which is why it was so important for the British to sink it specifically after it had sunk the symbol on the British side that was the HMS Hood. But the advancements that they make at Bletchley Park to crack the code, to break the code for the Enigma machines is huge. I cannot understate how big of a role that plays in a whole host of different things to do with this war, including shortening it. There are many historians that argue that it drastically shortened the length of World War II by the advancements made at Bletchley Park, and not just Bletchley Park. Golly, I'm blanking off the top of my head. Who it's one of the Scandinavian countries, Sweden maybe, that does their like replicate machine and eventually hands it over to the British, and that's where the British start from, is from the replica machine they're given. But that the advancements in code breaking plays a huge role in this war.
Comes at a crucial time. It distracts the press from Royal Navy losses in the Mediterranean, and signals to the U.S. Congress, still divided over American convoys, that the Royal Navy can defend American shipping. In Germany, propagandists spin the Bismarck's sinking as a noble last stand, but Hitler receives a different message. He's never trusted naval power. Capital ships are too expensive, too vulnerable to air raids, and their loss is too public. Plus, they gobble up Germany's limited fuel resources. The Royal Navy could have the Atlantic. From now on, he would use his capital ships defensively, and employ U-boats to harass convoys. After all, his focus was needed elsewhere. In 3 weeks...
That's probably the best move, though. There's a huge argument going on in the Japanese military at this time over the importance of air power and old school ships and things of that nature. And because war is changing right now, because technology is changing so quickly that it is changing the way that wars are prosecuted. I think the people that said, okay, air power has made it to where the naval power is no longer the thing that controls the outcome of wars. It's air power now. And so the people that see that still think the Navy is important, but they also think the Navy needs to have air power incorporated with it, and that's where you start to see things like aircraft carriers become more popular, become more used more regularly, because it shifts towards air power. So whatever we need to do to get air power in a specific spot for a battle or for a campaign or a front or whatever, then that's what we need to do. And that the old school ships have kind of, the day of the battleship has kind of ended, right?
Germany's forces would invade the Soviet Union, and he'd have plenty of time to deal with the troublesome English once he'd captured Moscow. Or so he thought. Thanks again to Wargaming for sponsoring these episodes. Fair sailing, everyone.
Yeah, of course, Hitler's going to go full Napoleon here and really struggle. He's going to have a really rough go in the Soviet Union. But, okay, so that was part 4 of Extra Histories Hunting the Bismarck series. I will have another video out later today. It will be something Sabaton related. And then tomorrow we'll have the next part of the Hannibal series. As always, like, comment, subscribe. Help me keep building the channel over here. We just got to 500 subscribers. I'm super, super thankful for all of the support and helping me kind of every step of the way of this process. So, yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you. Help me keep building the channel, and I will see you all next time.